Nobody walks into a biker bar alone at 16. Nobody. Unless they have a reason the rest of the world doesn't know about yet. It was a Tuesday night in a small town in rural Ohio, the kind of town where everybody knows everybody, where the diner closes at 8 and the only place still lit up. After 9 is a bar called Iron Wolf, and Iron Wolf wasn't just any bar. It was the home base of the Lost Wolves, one of the oldest biker clubs in the region. Tattooed arms, leather vests, motorcycles lined up outside like a metal fence. These were not the kind of men who smiled at strangers. So when the door swung open and a teenage girl walked in, alone, small, wearing an oversized leather jacket, every single head turned. And then the laughter started. What happened next is the kind of thing people in that town still talk about today. Her name was Maya, 17 years old, brown hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, jeans with a small tear at the knee. She didn't look like someone who belonged there. She looked like someone who had taken a wrong turn on the way home from school. And the men at Iron Wolf made sure she knew it. "Hey, sweetheart, you lost?" One of them called out from the bar. The whole room cracked up. Someone else whistled. Another guy pointed at her jacket, that big, worn-out black leather jacket that was clearly way too big for her, and said, "Where'd you steal that from, your dad's closet?" More laughter. Loud, mean, the kind that fills up a whole room and makes your ears ring. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't turn red. She didn't back toward the door. She just stood there, looked at the guy who made the joke, and said, "Yeah, I did." The room got a little quieter at that. But not quiet enough, not yet. She walked up to the bar and asked for the manager. The bartender, a big guy named Sal, forearms like tree trunks, looked her up and down and said the manager was busy. Maya said she'd wait. So she sat down on a bar stool, jacket still on, hands folded on the counter, and she waited. That's when one of the older bikers, a guy they called Rook, slid over. Rook had been with the Lost Wolves for over 20 years. He was the kind of man who had seen everything and was impressed by nothing. But something about this girl made him curious. Maybe it was the way she sat, too calm for someone surrounded by a room full of strangers who had just laughed at her. Maybe it was the jacket, because Rook had noticed something the others hadn't. On the back of that oversized leather jacket there was a patch. Not a store-bought patch, not something from a Halloween costume. A real one, stitched carefully, the kind of detail that takes hours. And the symbol on it, the skull with wings and the words underneath. Rook recognized it immediately. He had seen that patch before, a long time ago, on a man named Danny Kowalski. Rook leaned in slowly. He looked at the patch again to make sure he wasn't seeing things. He wasn't. His face changed completely. The smirk disappeared. The casual lean straightened up. And he went very, very still. He looked at Maya and said quietly, "Where did you get this jacket?" Maya looked at him. "It was my father's." "What's your father's name?" Danny Kowalski." The bar had been noisy the whole time. Music playing, bottles clinking, guys talking loud over each other the way they always do. But in the next few seconds, it went almost completely silent. Because Rook had stood up from his stool, and when Rook stood up like that, slow, deliberate, with that look on his face, people noticed. He turned to the room. Everybody shut up for a second, and they did. Here's what most people in that bar didn't know, but Rook did. Danny Kowalski had been a member of the Lost Wolves 15 years earlier. Not just a member, one of the most respected men the club had ever had. He was the kind of person who showed up when nobody else did. When a fellow member got into a bad accident and couldn't pay his hospital bills, Danny organized fundraisers 3 weekends in a row. When a younger member got into serious trouble and needed someone to vouch for him, Danny stood up without hesitating. But Danny had also made a choice that changed everything. When Maya was born, he walked away from the club life. Completely. He didn't do it with drama or an argument. He just told the guys he had a daughter now. And he needed to be the kind of man she could be proud of. Some people respected it. Some people didn't understand it. But everyone remembered it. Danny Kowalski had died 14 months before Maya walked into that bar. A car accident on a rainy highway. Gone at 41. Leaving behind a teenage daughter and that leather jacket hanging in the closet. Rook explained all of this to the room, standing in the middle of Iron Wolf, voice steady, not leaving out a single detail. By the time he was done, you could hear the music from the jukebox like it was the only sound left in the world. Then he looked at Maya and asked her why she had come. She reached into the pocket of that jacket, her father's jacket, and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She put it on the bar counter and smoothed it out with her hands. It was a medical bill. The number at the bottom had 6 digits. Her mother had been diagnosed with early-stage multiple sclerosis 3 months earlier. The treatment was working, but the cost was drowning them. Maya had already picked up 2 part-time jobs. She had already sold things from the house she didn't think her mom would miss. She had already done everything a 17-year-old could possibly do. And then she remembered something her father had told her once. When she was little, sitting on his lap while he polished that jacket, he had said, "The wolves take care of their own. Always. No matter what." That's not just a saying, that's a promise. So she put on his jacket, walked into Iron Wolf, and came to collect on that promise. There was a long silence after she said that. Then one of the guys in the back, nobody even remembers exactly who it was, said, "Somebody get her a Coke or something." And just like that, the whole energy in the room shifted. Within the next hour, the lost wolves had passed around a collection jar, the actual old tin jar they used at club meetings, and it went around the room twice. Sal, the bartender, put in more than anyone expected. A few guys called their wives right there at the bar to explain what was happening. Rook personally called the club's treasurer to talk about setting up something more permanent. By the end of the night, Maya had enough to cover 2 months of her mother's treatment, and the lost wolves had made a group decision. Danny, Kowalski's daughter, was under their protection now. Not as a member, not as anything formal, just as someone who belonged to them, the same way her father once did. Before she left, Rook walked her to the door. He looked at the patch on the back of the jacket one more time. Then he looked at her and said, "Your dad was the best kind of man I ever met. You've got his guts." Maya zipped the jacket up, thanked him, and walked out into the parking lot alone, the same way she had walked in. But it wasn't the same, not even close. There's a study from the University of California that found people are far more likely to help strangers when they feel a shared identity, a common group, a shared history, a sense of belonging. The lost wolves didn't help Maya because they felt sorry for her. They helped her because in that moment she wasn't a stranger. She was Danny's daughter, and that made her one of them. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk into a room full of people who are laughing at you and stand there until they understand why they should stop. Maya did that, in her father's jacket with his patch on her back, and it changed everything. Watch the next video on screen. You're going to want to see this one.